In 1994, my father played one of the best chess games of his whole career. He was playing a tournament in Playa de Aro, Spain, when he faced international master Antonio Antunes. Now, my dad would go on to beat Antonio in only 23 moves, and he would do so in the most beautiful way possible. In fact, it was so beautiful that he actually won a brilliancy prize for this game. So today, I'm gonna show you one of the prettiest chess games I've ever seen my dad play. And by the way, if you didn't know it, my dad is a grandmaster and he was a grandmaster when this game was played. Before I show you the game though, let me introduce to you the sponsor of this video, NordVPN. NordVPN is a VPN or a virtual private network which encrypts your data so you can safely browse the internet privately and anonymously. If you're like me and you travel a lot, you probably use a lot of public Wi-Fi, either at airports, hotels, or maybe even cafes. Through unsecured Wi-Fi, your data runs at a risk, as it is a lot easier for malicious entities to try to access it. NordVPN hides your IP address and makes sure that all your data is encrypted, so that no matter what connection you use or where you are, your data is secure. Whilst you're traveling, you might also want to enjoy some of your favorite movies or favorite TV shows, like I, for instance, love Outlander. However, you might find yourself not being able to watch it in the new country you're in. That's where NordVPN comes in very handy, as you can, through NordVPN, connect to a different location and have a very good chance of being able to watch whatever you want. There are also other perks, such as threat protection, which makes sure that every time you press a link or download a file, it is safe. If it leads to a malicious website, NordVPN will automatically block it. And the best thing? If for some reason you are not satisfied with the product, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. On top of that, every purchase of a 2-year plan will receive an additional gift. So click the link in the description box down below to get an exclusive NordVPN deal. And now, let's get back to the video and to my dad's beautiful game. So my dad had the white pieces and he started with the move d4, like father, like daughter, even though he didn't have a daughter back then, but I played d4 because of my dad. Antonio replied with d5 and he went c4. And we could see here that this became a semi-Slav defense, which is one of the most common chess openings out there. And now my dad played bishop g5, which I think is one of the most active moves for white. Now, for me, if I'm playing this as white, the number one scary move is for black to capture the c4 pawn, because here, the theory is very sharp. So the idea here is that black is capturing this pawn and black is going to kind of try to keep this pawn and then white is going to get a lot of center. So e4 was played, both kind of threatening e5, but also threatening to take this pawn. And now he replied with b5, the only move he really can do there. And now my dad could have gone e5, or he could do the move that he did, which is a4, challenging this b5 pawn and asking, what are you going to do, Antonio? What are you going to do with this pawn? There's a lot of different things he can do, such as pushing. There's even some crazy lines with a6 where you even give up the exchange and it's actually fine for black. But we're not going to get into all of this. Antonio played queen b6 here, simply defending the pawn. What is the drawback of that move? Well, the drawback is that you're now stopping the defense of this knight. And so in this position, my dad can take the knight and then black is going to get these double pawns, which look quite ugly, but we have to remember that right now black is a pawn up as well. So bishop e2 was played here. My dad just simply wanted to develop, and Antonio replied with bishop b7, developing his bishop, and this is by far the best diagonal for the bishop, as if my dad ever captures this pawn, this bishop is going to become really good. So my dad simply castled, continuing the development, and he went a6, reinforcing the defense of this pawn. Now, my dad has developed all of his pieces at this point pretty much. I mean, the knights, the bishop, the king, everything is out. So he now has time to start creating his own plans. And he could see that Antonio's king was still in the center, which typically when the king is still in the center, what you want to do is that you want to open up the center. You want to try to get the files in front of the king open so that you can get some rooks and queens in there and you can start attacking the king. So what did my dad do? He played the move d5, which I think is like a very explosive move. The idea of d5 is very simple. I mean, he wants black to take here, and then he just simply wants to get all his pieces active. And it's going to take a while before this king can castle, because he needs to first develop his bishop, and then he needs to castle. And this is going to take quite some time. So Antonio in this position decided to not really do anything and just simply develop his knight, as he did not want to open up this position right now. So here my dad continued with the threats and went knight d4, threatening now to capture on e6 and win this pawn. And now this is getting a little bit strange for black. I mean, black needs to be a little bit careful. There's a lot of different moves that he can do here that are good. For instance, the best move for black here is to go knight e5 and just get the knight up to the center and actually give up this pawn. The idea here is that if white takes, there's long castles, and now, bam, white wanted to open up the center. It's black that wants to open up the center because this knight is so badly placed. The queen is in the same file as the rook, and this is just a terrible position for white. However, Antonio didn't play this move, knight e5, and instead he decided to threaten the knight with the move c5, also defending this pawn at the same time. Here, my dad went knight c6, sacrificing a pawn, but saying, if you take my knight, I'm going to capture back, and if you take here on c6, I'm going to take, I'm going to trade, and then I'm going to take on b5, and my knight is going to be really strong here, plus your pawns are going to be very weak. I'm going to get back the c4 pawn. It's going to be equal with pawns, but this pawn is going to be pretty weak, and your king is still in the center. So this was the idea of knight c6 if there would be a lot of trades. Now, instead, Antonio decided to play rook g8, just simply putting the rook on the same file as the king, and also saying, if you capture here on e6, at some point, and this bishop gets opened up, there's going to be a few threats towards g2. Also, he's never really going to castle kingside anyway, so it doesn't matter that he's moving his rook. So now we see that the attack really starts. My dad goes bishop h5, pinning this pawn, and now with some serious threats of capturing here, as Antonio wouldn't be able to capture back because of this pin. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick. Here, Antonio thought, okay, let's just get rid of this knight. Or actually, I don't know what Antonio thought. I mean, I cannot enter his brain. But Antonio decided to take this knight on c6. And now my dad did not want to take it back. Instead, he sacrificed the knight and decided to pick up the pawn on e6, with the threat of going pawn takes f7. Now in this position, it is crucial for this king to get out of here, because this threat would be a check where the king would be in check, but also the rook would be falling. So right now, Antonio has a few options, either to castle queenside and run away with the king, or to defend this pawn with a move such as knight e5. Antonio ended up going knight e5, but this was a mistake, and he should have gone castles, sacrificing this knight, but Antonio probably wanted to play with a piece more and thought that he would be able to save this position from here. So he didn't want to give back the piece. Now, I think that this is the most beautiful part, because now my dad starts to play on the queen side. He realizes that the position right now is very tight for black, and a lot of black's pieces are tied to a certain square to defend things, such as this knight is trapped here to defend this pawn, this bishop is here kind of defending the rook, this queen is also right now in quite a good spot. So he ended up taking on b5, asking, what are you going to take with? Now this is really nice, because if black would take with the a pawn, for instance, then my dad can take here, take, and then go bishop takes f7. And if knight takes f7, there is a checkmate. And if queen e7, well, you just win the rook. So this was kind of the idea. You cannot take back with the queen because it's hanging. So Antonio ended up taking back with the bishop. Now, my dad went for this move, queen d5, threatening the rook and threatening to take on f7. And this was the idea of eliminating the bishop from this diagonal because now this move is available. And he has two very serious threats. How do you defend from both of those threats? Well, the move that makes the most sense is to go rook a7, defending the rook and defending f7. Now, once again, my dad starts playing on the fact that all of these pieces are very tied in the queen side, and he goes knight takes b5. If pawn takes b5, the idea is just simply that after pawn takes, knight takes, and takes, this is going to be a checkmate in 7 moves after king e7 and rook a1 and blah, blah, blah. I mean, all the pieces are coming in. So he cannot take with the pawn, so he took with the queen. Here, my dad went rook d1, threatening checkmate in 1 move, queen d8. So Antonio went back to b6 to defend the checkmate. And now, my dad, once again playing on the fact that both of these pieces are tied to these 2 squares, played a beautiful move that you can try to guess in the comments down below right now. But if you don't have the patience, I will tell you right now, he went for this move, rook takes a6, which is a beautiful move because he's right now threatening the queen and the rook, and black needs to make a choice. What is he going to take with? If he takes the queen, there's a checkmate in 1. If he takes with the rook, well then there's going to be e takes f7, knight takes f7, and then there's a million checkmates here, such as queen d7. So actually, now Antonio was completely desperate, and when rook takes g2, sacrificing the rook, my dad simply took, and now he went rook takes a6. Now, however, there's a different checkmate in 3, and this is the only thing that wins right now. If he doesn't do the checkmate in 3, then it's not going to be that winning for him because he's a rook down. But there's this beautiful line which goes bishop takes f7. If knight takes f7, there's a checkmate in 1. And after king e7, my dad sacrificed his queen and went queen d7 check. Because after knight takes, there is rook takes d7, and this is a checkmate. The game ended though after queen d7. Here, Antonio resigned. Antonio Antunes would end up getting that grandmaster norm the same year, and he would end up becoming a grandmaster in 1994, and actually becoming the first grandmaster from Portugal. So I think that this is a beautiful game. Like I said, my dad ended up getting the Brilliancy Prize for this game, and it's a game that he's always held very close to his heart. And the reason I also wanted to make this video was because it was my dad's birthday just a few days ago, and I wanted to share with the world one of his best games. So I hope that you enjoyed this game, and yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you thought about the game and what your favorite move was. Thank you also so much to NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to check out the link down below. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye-bye!